Some of the elements of tomorrow's coronation of King Charles date back centuries. Justin Vovk is a PhD candidate in early modern history at McMaster University, and he specializes in the history of the monarchy. He joins us this morning with a few things to be watching for tomorrow. Good morning to you, Justin.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
So let's start off. There's a lot to look for here. Let's start off with the oath of office.
Yes, so this is one of the major parts of the coronation, and the Archbishop of Canterbury is basically going to ask Charles 3 questions: if he's going to uphold the laws of Britain and the Commonwealth, if he's going to uphold laws in general, and if he's going to uphold the Anglican Church. And this is a really important moment in the coronation because it's basically a contract that the king is agreeing to along with Parliament, and he even signs it at the end of the ceremony. So he's signing his name to this. It's binding.
Let's get to the anointing. The anointing has a spoon that's been like very centuries old, and we're not going to actually see the anointing happen.
Right. This is the most sacred part of the service. We didn't see the anointing for Queen Elizabeth either. The camera crews cut away to a stained glass image. This time they're going to put up a screen. So Charles is going to have like a little canopy put over his head. The screen will get set up, and then he will be anointed behind that. So it's considered too sacred to be shown on TV. And it's also the only moment pretty much in the entire service, if not the whole day, where Charles will have a moment to himself to reflect and sort of contemplate on what's happening.
Because it's supposed to be a moment with the Archbishop, the King, and God.
Yes, exactly. And his mother talked about the fact that that was a really important moment for her. She took it as a moment to reflect, to pray, and just to have that intimacy with God, because she was a very devout Anglican. Mm-hmm. And Charles has echoed that. So I think it will be a very, very personal moment for him.
Okay, something very spectacular is the investiture with all the crown jewels.
Yes, that is really when they roll out all of the bling. We've got the scepters, the orb. We're even going to see riding spurs. Thankfully, nobody's going to actually be putting those on Charles. They're just symbolic. But the big moment will be when the crown of St. Edward is placed upon his head.
Okay, and the crown of St. Edward, is that the very, very heavy one? And that's in the images that we're seeing now on screen. I believe it's the gold one.
That's correct. So this one dates from the 1600s. The original crown of St. Edward was destroyed in the 1600s as well, so they made this new one. And they only pulled this one out for coronations. It is not used for anything else. But then at the end of the service, when Charles leaves the Abbey and they go back to Buckingham Palace, they show up on the balcony, Charles will be wearing the imperial state crown. And this is the big, giant purple one. They pull it out for the state openings of Parliament. And the last time we saw it was at the Queen's funeral last September.
Okay, and what does the orb do? What does that represent?
Well, it represents a whole lot of heaviness, for one thing. That thing weighs a ton. But it represents really that the king is God's representative on earth. It's got that literal iconography of the cross on top of the globe, but it's really this old symbol of royal power that kings rule in the world on behalf of God. So it's a really old symbolic element of royalty that is used in many different monarchies.
Okay, and Justin, we've got about 30 seconds left, but what about the enthronement? What does that entail?
So this is the moment where once Charles has all of his regalia, he's going to be brought over to a separate throne, and he'll be seated there. And in the past, this is when all of the peers and the government and the congregation all shout, "God save the king" 3 times. Now, we're not 100% sure what this is going to look like tomorrow, because we know that it's not going to be a lot of peers. It's going to be a lot of representatives of British society, frontline volunteers, and members of interfaith communities. So from what we're hearing, it will most likely have other more modern elements, but we're going to kind of have to wait and see what it's going to look like.
Okay, thanks very much for your insight on this tomorrow. Gives us some things to look for very early tomorrow. Actually, at CHCH TV, we will be airing the coronation live at 5 a.m. And Justin Vovk, thanks very much.
Thank you.